Our next speaker, as I was saying, that's a rather good segue to our next speaker, who has been dealing with things like the ethics of technology and working with a number of large industries, and has taken an imaginative pathway, one could almost say, towards her role in robotics. And so that's about all I can say right now, barring to welcome Jasmine Lawrence to the stage. Do you need slides?
Nope. Hi. Yeah, that would be better. Hi. Cool. Yeah, that was actually an amazing panel. So, shout out to everyone who just inspired me all over again that I want to be in this field. Thank you so much for the introduction. My name is Jasmine Lawrence. I'm going to be talking to you guys today for super briefly, 15 minutes, about diverse pathways into robotics. And instead of giving you a ton of examples, I'm just going to tell you about my actual life, all the roller coasters and all the things that I've learned from all of the opportunities that I've had, and how those have played into my perception and my contributions to robotics, which have not been massive, but have been very enjoyable. So my name is Jasmine. I am a technical program manager at Facebook. I actually work on blood donations, a blood donations product at Facebook, where we are connecting blood banks with potential donors on the platform. So shout out to Zipline for kind of being on the other end of that pipeline. I'm also the founder and CEO of Eat and Body Works, which is a company that makes all natural hair and body care products. I've been doing that since I was 13, so we just hit our 15th year of business this year. We're in Walmart, CVS, Amazon, Target, all the major places. And those are the bulk of my day jobs. In my free time, I am a early access developer on the Misty Robotics platform. They're a place out of Colorado that are building a platform for social humanoids, which are my absolute favorite. But yeah, so for me, I lost my hair when I was 11 years old, and that's what caused me to start my own company, making hair care products, making skincare products that were natural and affordable, and kind of really shifted my perception of what businesses can do in people's lives. I always thought, you make a product, people buy it, that's basically what business is, people are willing to give you money for something, but I really recognize that being an entrepreneur gives you the opportunity to be a public servant, to find a need in the world, and be the person that volunteers to solve it. So I really liked your question of how do you know the market is ready? I think everyone is ready to have their worst problems resolved, to have expensive things be more affordable and more approachable for different people. And people who have been traditionally underserved are waiting for their moment when someone makes a product for them. So for me, it was pretty clear that that's how I wanted to use my life, building products to serve people. But years before I even lost my hair and started a business and did all that stuff, I saw this movie called Bicentennial Man, and it was super awesome. I was 8 years old, I believe, when the movie came out, and I was completely just spellbound by it. And I thought, I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to make that thing real. I don't know what problem it's going to solve or how it's going to help people, but all I want to do is make this thing a reality. I also grew up with 2 military parents, and so I really wanted a role where no one could tell me what to do, since my entire life was regiment and rules. And so I thought, robots aren't real, no one has made them yet, there are no boundaries, there are no laws, we can basically do whatever we want as long as it's good. And that's what made me kind of pursue that full time. So I actually studied math and science and had an affinity for that while I was growing up, which is pretty typical of someone who works in tech. But I also was a communicator. I loved karaoke. I loved singing. I was in plays. And so it was this blend of this tech nerd, but also this creative artist type of person. And robotics seemed like a very open and accepting field for both sides of me, both technical and creative. I ended up pursuing my bachelor's degree in computer science at Georgia Tech, and we have a fellow Georgia Tech alumni in the room, so go Jackets. And I started with computer engineering because when I saw the movie, the thing that stuck out to me about the robot was that it was humanoid, that it looked like me and it had an identity and a personality. And so I thought I wanted to be a computer engineer and physically make things that didn't exist before. That's what I had done in my first business, put ingredients together, physically mix them in my lab, assemble them, label hundreds of bottles of craziness. But when I first got into college and started learning how to program, I thought, oh no, I don't care what they look like. I don't want to build it. I don't care how much power we need for this battery. I just want to control its mind. That seemed like the significant portion that I wanted to contribute to. How does it understand the world? How does it make decisions? How does it engage with the environment that it's put in and the people it has to interact with? So it changed my major to computer science. And all of this sounds like very normal, but it's about to get crazy, so hold on to your seats. So I joined the robotics lab at Georgia Tech, Robotics and Intelligent Machines Lab. Started my first project in Java, which was helping this robot have favorite colors, moved on to working in robotic nurses, that would help people with physical therapy. I absolutely loved it. I thought, this is it. Took me 10 years, check, done, living my dream. I'm gonna be a robotics researcher, all done. But my first internship in college was actually at Microsoft, working on the Xbox One. And you're thinking like, okay, this is the smartest piece of hardware that Microsoft has to offer at the moment. This was like right around, like you said, the Connect era. And my whole goal of taking that job was, okay, robots are still in the labs, they're still toys, they're still just these theoretical things. I'm gonna learn about consumer electronics because obviously people have VCRs, people have cell phones, people have all of these consumer tech, and how can I bridge that gap between robots in the lab and robots in our homes and in our jobs and our workplaces? So took it upon myself to learn about consumer electronics, did that job for a lot of years, and I really enjoyed being in the gaming space because it completely changed my perspective on like how we interact with software. So for me, like all the software that I worked with was primarily ROS, primarily like custom Java or, just like custom applications that literally people make up for one specific product and then they throw away. But when I was working at Xbox, there was something different because there's so many types of games, so many genres of like storytelling games, first-person shooters, just like a crazy amount of games, and they're all coming to the same system, the same interactions, like the same buttons, but your experience in the game was completely different. And so actually working on something that people were using, hearing their stories and actually seeing their stories, because I worked on video editing so people could take screenshots and videos of their favorite moments and share why they really love games. That really inspired me to take it from a technical perspective of how does the device work and what does it do, to what are people actually receiving on the other end, how is it influencing them emotionally, how is it influencing them as they interact with the controller and the screen and all those things. So I went on to take my master's degree at the University of Washington in human-centered design and engineering. And this was a crazy different way of learning for me because it was a balance between research, design, and engineering all in one. It was the most multidisciplinary collaborative experience that I've ever had, whereas when I was in engineering school, it was very much siloed of, if you're the ME, you work on the ME stuff. If you're the coder, you work on the coding stuff. And even in my first job in industry, I was just getting to the point where we're collaborating on these giant teams to put one massive tool together. The other perspective that came out of that experience was just there were half of them were part-time students and half were full-time students. So we had the curiosity of people who were just right out of school with the veteran experience of industry veterans. And so that was really awesome to see those combine and having people who were firemen and teachers and doctors and nurses all coming together to solve problems by understanding people first and actually building what they want. So after all of my schooling was done, I started my crazy career hopping to a lot of different experiences post-gaming. I ended up working on the Microsoft HoloLens, working in VR, and that really brought the spatial planning opportunities to light for me. Of course, I understood that robots exist in our real space, but there's so many interactions that we will have as humans beyond just physically touching things, whether it's your voice or bringing in holograms or bringing in a physical device. And every time I think of something from a human perspective, I think about how do we complement that or how do we mirror that when we're building robotic technology. After working in VR for about a year, I transitioned to actually getting a full-time job at SoftBank Robotics, where we were building Pepper, which is a fully functional humanoid robot that can do facial recognition and speech recognition and navigate and localize itself and do all these things. And I thought, wow, we're really here. This is totally happening. We're done. This is the robot that's gonna be in your home and change your world. And what I realized is that we really haven't decided what is the role robotics is going to play in our life. What jobs do we want them to be able to do? And that was the first time where we had to do the actual planning of, hi, oh, my team's in the back, go surfing. We actually had to do the actual planning of like what the experience would be like. And while modeling is great for all of the like physics and technical things and is it safe, it really didn't bring to light the experience. So my team would actually go through and just like demo and play the role of the robot. We ended up making a ton of apps where you would just like experience it with another person. And then if you inserted a robot into the space, was it the same? Was it different? Was it better? That was a really enlightening experience for me to embody and really put myself in the shoes of the device and the world the device would be in, and not always just take the human perspective as the human building or consuming the experience. So lastly, I moved over to work at Facebook, working in video communications device called Portal, and there I ran the program for accessibility to make sure that people who were differently abled, whether it was cognition, mobility, hearing, vision, that they could use this device. And I just thought, wow, robotics has a great opportunity to be an assistive technology, but and not only just to be like a very expensive tool for industries that can afford it, but to be a superpower or a friend or an assistant to people from different backgrounds and different fields. And so that really did change my perspective of, okay, I'm going to build robots, but they have to be for good. They have to be for people who need them. They have to be used in use cases that may not be like advancing a space like manufacturing or something like that, but how can we bring those personal elements that you can feel and sense into people's environments? And then lastly, I know I'm over my time, moving over to blood donations really brought me into the healthcare space and understanding just the safety, privacy, security, just the deep systems and the deep regulations that make it really hard to solve some of our world's biggest problems. And when I think about that from the perspective of like building a device, I think our emotional well-being, our social skills, and being able to build software to kind of fill that gaps where that access to another person might not be available, or like where you want to like monitor trends and behavior will be really fundamental to like helping in the healthcare space. So like I mentioned, I'm an early access developer with Misty Robotics, and so I'm currently working with a Misty 2, trying to figure out if I'm going to have a humanoid robot in my home, what kind of relationship do I want to have? What type of conversations do I want to have? What are the challenges that I have being a single person, kind of isolated in the city, with this robot there, and how can I bring that to children with autism, or children who are in mental health facilities, or children who are in orphanages, or children who are, just having different experiences. And so I really do see lots of opportunities in those spaces, but I do also see just regulation and vulnerability and really understanding how working with tech at such an early age could really change their interactions with other humans. So that is my crazy journey through all of these different spaces, where every time I could turn around and look at my robot or look at my desire to make impact in the space and have it changed and altered and improved and more human, but applying that to technology and to the technology space. Last thing I'll say before I open up for questions is I wanted to go into the barriers that kind of stop people from having all those opportunities and getting into this field in general, like not feeling good enough, not knowing enough. But I'm just going to skip that and go straight to the resources that help you overcome it. Andra has like a hardware hack lab in Oakland that's open to women. It's such a safe space for you to just explore, and whether you've written a line of code or not, or work with Arduino or not, or have no idea what ROS is, it's a very open and welcome place to just step your foot in there. And like I've shown through my story, if you have any perspective whatsoever on the human existence, you can contribute to the field of robotics in some way, even if it's just through your thoughts and opinions and personalities, or your personal desires or wishes to influence the direction of the space. And then online, there's classes on Udacity and Coursera about how to be a robotic engineer, or how to be an entrepreneur, or honestly, just to brush up on physics or math if that's something that you feel like you're not confident in. But join a community, join a group, do it together, and just be a part of this movement, because it's open to everyone, no matter how young or old or what your background is. We can all influence it. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
We will have time for questions. There's one at the front there, and we're getting someone.
Hi, thank you for a wonderful talk. It was very inspiring. I have a question. Like somebody is like a software engineer and an ML pursuing how they can get involved in robotics, and there is a simulation phase like reinforcement learning and all, but how you can do it with the robotics is there like what kind of skills required for that?
Yeah, so I would say robotics is like a team sport. And so if you're an ML engineer, you want to find someone who has a problem that actually needs to be served with machine learning, which is not all of them, by the way. So really kind of like finding where the need is for what you bring to the table, whether it's learning how to get somewhere or learning how to do a certain task. All of these things should be defined by whatever the problem is. So it might be saying like, hey, I want to use machine learning to solve this type of problem, and then applying that to how does robotics fit into solving that problem versus going the other way around. I think someone on the panel mentioned like the worst thing that they ever did was like build something first, when it's really like you really have to understand the problem space and if that's going to be necessary. Yeah. Next question.
Is there another question? I wouldn't mind asking you. Did you find someone? I did. Go for it. Well, I wouldn't mind asking the audience a question. How many here have built a robot? That's pretty good. How many people have participated in a group of people that have built a robot? We get a few more people there. I think the point about it being a team sport is really relevant, and the idea that you need a lot more than simply building the hardware to be part of building a robot. And for all those people that didn't put up your hands, either you're really, really shy, or we're going to see you at next month's Hack Day, aren't we? Yeah? Okay. Is there one last question? One short question.
It's okay. Thank you so much. You don't have to be a part of a big company to be making moves in robotics. You can be like a personal hacker just like me. You could be working in industry. You could be starting your own company. My whole takeaway is like, I want you guys to understand how inclusive and open this community is and the phase that it is right now. There are some fields that I'll say feel very hard to get into and just like I'll even say male dominated, but I do feel like there's a strong and passionate community. And this is an industry where you bring your brain and your heart. And I know that's like a really huge thing for me personally and for a lot of people in this room. So please do join our community, be involved, and have a great day.